Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Brand Groupies Podcast, where we speak with inspiring brand leaders who are building and rocking their brands. And today we continue with our backstage series, highlighting the real brand groupies who are making brands shine. And I am so excited to welcome DP Knudten today. I'm a big fan of his, and we recently connected on his podcast, Nonfiction Brand, and had such an amazing conversation. We could have talked for hours. So this is, his turn to tell his story, and I'm really, really excited to have you. So welcome, DP.
Well, thank you so much, Carey. I'm really excited to talk with you again because our first two episodes on my podcast were the beginning of a wonderful friendship.
Yes.
I feel.
You had me at the guitars in your background.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'll just share a little bit about, you. DP is chief collaborator. He has worked on some of the biggest brands in the business, including Coca-Cola, The Athlete's Foot, and Closet Maid during tenures at DP Knudten, Chicago, McCann Erickson in Atlanta, and creative shops in Denver, Sarasota, and Madison. He's the author of Nonfiction Brand, Discover, Craft, and Communicate the Completely True Brand That You Are, and co-author of Rotoma, the ROI of Social Media, Top of Mind, and Nonfiction Brand. He is also a keynote speaker and clinician in branding, social media, creativity, and culture for groups throughout the United States. Very impressive resume there.
Oh, yeah. Well, it should be because I wrote it myself.
Okay. I hope I didn't botch anything. Well, welcome today. And I'm really excited to kind of dive into, how you got started. And, I found you through, Allison on LinkedIn. And, I was so impressed by your podcast and your book, Nonfiction Brand. We ordered it right away. We added it to the Brand Groupies book club. So we're in the middle of reading it, and we're going to pull out, different quotes from it. So we're really excited about that. But, I guess it's, starting with you have a brand presence, you have such a big personal brand. And, how did you get to having that today? What led to that?
You really want the gory story?
Yeah, the gorier, the better. We're
all right. Well, I'm from the Midwest, and in the Midwest, you're not all that, young man. You put your pants on one leg at a time, just like anybody else. You aren't better than anyone else. You aren't worse than anyone else, but we would never say that. We always say you aren't better than anybody else. And so I grew up as one of those hide your light under a bushel Midwesterners. And even though I was involved in the arts, my degree is in theater. I was an actor in my nebulous 20s. And all that stuff. But I was one of those actors who didn't like being a personality. I wanted to be an artist, not a personality. Well, later when I started my career in advertising, I did it anonymously. I mean, I worked in a creative group behind the wall, if you will, or under the hood of the chassis of the agency. And I did it successfully for 20 plus years. And then I reached what I love to call my X years. Those are the years where you're experienced, you've demonstrated your expertise over not just years, but decades. You're expensive. And if you don't own the agency, you're expendable. And it hit me in the head like a baseball bat that while everyone who worked directly with me, knew of me, knew what I was good at, the grouchy parts of me, you name it, they knew everything about me. Very few people outside the agency or on the other side of that agency wall knew who I was, what I did, and how I did it. And those are the three things that really distinguish you from anyone else, right? Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden, I'm the most expensive person on the payroll. When you lose a client, what happens? You drop the most expensive person on the payroll if you're not an owner of the agency. Well, I was not an equity participant or owner of an agency. And I realized, wow, that was a dumb idea to spend all my effort, all my energy, all my joie de vivre on somebody else and not reserve any of it for myself, nor tout the fact that I'm doing these things. And that's when I realized, you know what? hiding my light under a bushel was not a good idea.
Mm.
So instead, I immediately set forth to rectify the situation. And I recalled a story that Tom Peters wrote for Fast Company magazine in 1997 called The Brand Called You. And it was all about personal branding, this concept that he coined in 1997. So it's been around for a long, long time. And I remember it was so impactful. I remember where I was when I read it, because I'm like, this is so brilliant. And it wasn't about creating some type of fictitious brand. It was about packaging who you are, what you do, and how you do it in a way that attracts people, that allows them to understand that. And that is what leads to not just engagement, but true human connection. Because once you demonstrate those things, and once it's widely known, and once you've focused what you're trying to say about yourself and present about yourself and communicate about yourself, people can grab onto it like it's a handle on a suitcase. Mm-hmm. That suitcase can be full of everything you love, everything you hate, everything you've done, but it doesn't matter. They now have a handle, or what I like to call a brandle, on your personal brand suitcase. Mm-hmm. And now you can take that suitcase and you can walk it over to the person who may say, do you know anyone who's a good writer? Oh, you got to meet DP. Sure. He's got a book. You should check out the book. Oh, and he's all about personal branding. Oh, and and all of a sudden you've got an unpaid sales force working for you when you don't even know it. Mm-hmm. Because they know who you are, what you do, and how you do it in a way that is packaged like cereal.
Yeah. Great point. And I always say we try to nail down the brand pillars. I think we talked about that. And what really sets you apart. So with all your experience with dealing with Coca-Cola and the Athlete's Foot and those major big brands, what were like your superpowers that then led, that were really the staples of your brand, your pillars? Because I know you're a writer, you're also so charismatic, and the theater background did not surprise me. So I think, you stand out, you definitely make an impression. So what were, your superpowers that kind of stayed with you into your personal brand?
Well, that's interesting you say that, because when I'm looking at you, even across Zoom or, a face-to-face conversation, you see me as happy and peppy and bursting with love. The reality is, in my natural state, I'm a high-functioning introvert. I can turn it up and turn it on when I need to, but I guarantee you, after our conversation today, I'll be slumping in my chair for the rest of the afternoon as my battery strives to recharge. And for the longest time, I use that as an excuse not to put myself out there in any big, meaningful way. But you were asking about my superpowers, or what I would call my key three. You've mentioned pillars, brand pillars. I, of course, because I'm a copywriter, I've got to coin a different term for it and put a circle R on it, or a TM, to say, no, it's not a brand pillars, it's key three. You've got 3 ideas, 3 concepts, 3 phrases or words that sum up who you are, what you do, and how you do it. Mm-hmm. So I've been doing that for years for other businesses. And as I said, I didn't do it for myself. I kind of knew, well, I'm a good writer because people seem to like the way I write. But a writer is not really who I am. Writing is a tool, the same way that using Adobe InDesign is a tool for a graphic designer. That's just a tool. Who are you really? And so I always search for the first principle idea that sums up the truth of who you are. And it took me a while to go through my 3, but the first one was easy, and that is creative. I have to be on the creative side of the fence on whatever I do. It doesn't matter. Even when I was working as a temp for, a telephone company, I had to be on the creative side, meaning I was the one who was creating the Excel spreadsheet with all the formulas and all that stuff. I wasn't the one who was just filling in the data entry, Mm-hmm. I had to be creative. Yeah. The second one, and this one took me a long time to figure out, is collaborative. The word collaborative. Collaborator Creative is the name of my consulting business, because that's what I do. I collaborate. And I point back to earlier on in my career, before I was an advertising copywriter, I did improv theater. And I say theater, not just comedy, but improv theater, because that the basic tenets of improvisation are: number one rule, listen. Number two rule, listen. Number three rule, listen. You have to listen, listen, listen. And then you have to say yes and. Meaning, if you start a scene where you say, get away from the fire, the TNT is about to blow up, I'm not going to turn around and say, there's no TNT in there. I'm going to say, you're right. Our enemies set it on fire as they, invade our village, whatever it is. I take whatever you say and I plus it up. I add to it. So that's collaboration in action. And I realized that while I like to think that my writing is me solo by myself in a garret staring at a wall, it's really informed by everything that I deal with when talking with clients. We come to almost a détente, an understanding, a deep understanding on who they are, what they do, and how they do it, so that I can then listen very deeply on what they say they want and then deliver what I know they need. There's a difference. What they say they want is not necessarily what they need.
Yeah.
Now, the third word was the hardest for me to figure out until I realized my greatest, if you think about your greatest superpower, all you have to do is turn the other side of the coin. It's your greatest weakness. So if you have that thing in your life where I'm really good at this, but when I go too far, it slips over into that, my friends, is probably one of your key three. In my case, it's always been about the word provocative or provocation. Now, I don't consider provocation to be a naturally or 100% of the time negative word. To provoke ideas, to provoke thought, to provoke conversation, to provoke engagement, to provoke sales, all of these things are good things. But if you go one step too far, you've provoked the bear who's about to kill you. So my greatest superpower is that provocation, but my greatest superpower weakness, my kryptonite, if you will, is the perhaps going a little too far. And I'm aware of that, which is the first step toward calibrating yourself correctly so you don't go too far. But you asked for my three. Those are my three: creative, collaborative, and provocative.
Okay. Love it. Thank you. That really, that helps. And, to our listeners too, thinking about, their three, that what sets them apart, because you can't have like 10. It's just too much to remember. You really have to nail it down so people can talk about you, and word of mouth. So, it's interesting. I know, looking at the branding world from what, early days when I was at, the old school PR agencies in New York City and sending out press releases, and you were in Atlanta working, on ads and copywriting. Of course, the industry has evolved so much, now to include so many people on a team, even for social media and branding. It's like you have the copywriter, the designer, you have the tech person, digital marketing. I always find it a challenge to kind of find that ideal team. You have the experienced brander mixed with the, millennial who's right out of school. From your experience, what have you found to be successful as you've evolved and been on like the cutting edge of this industry, as far as like forming teams nowadays and collaborating with different generations and, people who have different experiences, but you kind of have to collaborate and work together in today's ever-changing world?
Well, I think you hit on a big word, and that is different. Or you could conflate that with a word that's bandied about a lot these days: diversity. You need a diversity of thought, experience, gender, age, you name it, because it's that collaboration between the diverse members of whatever team you're putting together that is the difference between something that's good or something that's great. Now, again, I look for examples outside advertising and marketing because I think they're more fun, But if you think about it, name a movie director that you love, and then ask certain questions like, why are they performing at the very highest level they are? And like an example I love to use a lot is Martin Scorsese, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's a top shelf movie director. How many people know that he's used the same film editor for every one of his films, or I think just about every one of them, Thelma Schoonmaker? And by the way, how many people know that Thelma Schoonmaker has more Academy Awards than Martin Scorsese does?
I didn't know.
Well, that's the whole point, because he's the lead, but she's the rhythm section right behind. And I'm going to speak in your language, Carey. She is the bass, the drums, and the songwriter, if you will,
keeps it
for
going.
the band.
Keeps the train running, right?
Right. And take a look at that. You've got Martin Scorsese, who's a quintessential New Yorker. And then you've got Thelma Schoonmaker, who got a totally different experience, totally different gender. And yet together they collaborate to create greatness.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sure. And I think greatness, there are some individuals who you can point to and say, no, that's a solo person who was great. For Michelangelo, lying on his back in the Sistine Chapel, he did that by himself. That was great. Yeah. But then you dig a little deeper and you find out some of the other old masters of Italian painting, they had entire studios where they had people, not unlike Andy Warhol, who were doing the kind of grunt work stuff, like, you get the canvases ready, here's the outline I want you to do, and then I'll come in and I'll touch up some stuff and make it look fantastic. So for the mythology of the individual great man or great woman, the reality is, as one of my favorite people talks about all the time, greatness is in the service of others, or I would extend that to say greatness is in the collaboration with others. You know, I think that's how you create the type of breakthrough stuff that you definitely need to do in these days of everything is media. Everything is always on 24/7.
Yes.
And if you haven't looked at your Twitter stream in the last 5 minutes, you're already missing something major.
Yeah, for sure. No, thank you. That's really great advice. And, you know, I think it's just, like you said, things are moving so fast, and it's just like how to keep up and how to bring on people to your team. And, you know, when you approach a brand, you know, really how to take it to the next level to make sure that you are staying on, you know, the cutting edge. So it's all about, you know, collaboration. So I want to talk more about your personal brand. So I know, you know, you were early on in kind of getting that together, and I know, you know, you have your nonfiction brand book and brand. What were some of the first steps you did to start your personal brand? I know the book didn't come on day one. So is, you know, that always a goal, or did you just start slowly, you know, speaking, you know, putting your name out there? What were kind of the first steps if someone wants to, you know, start today? Because it's never too late. You know, it's like, start today, and what should they be doing first if, you know, they want to?
Okay, well, I don't know if this is what you should be doing first, but it's what I did first. As a creative director in advertising and marketing, I was an early adopter of every social media platform. So the second Tumblr comes out, I get an account. The second Twitter comes out, I get an account. And I sign up. And when I signed up, I would always use different handles. You know, like on my Tumblr was self-loathing copywriter, I think. And early on, my Twitter handle was Knudten, CANOE10, because that's get it. That's how my last name's pronounced.
I did not write that down when I was pronouncing it.
but you will now. But anyway, I realized one day when I started getting serious about, okay, how am I going to amplify my true personal brand? I realized I've got all these different handles out there, and nobody knows who they are, or because they were anonymous for the most part, and they aren't serving me. To be anonymous on social media is perfect if you're a troll. But if you're a personal brand who's trying to build awareness, preference, understanding, the like, know, and trust that Bob Berg talks about, you aren't going to get it by being squeaky girl 25. So I decided I'm going to reconcile all my accounts to my name, DP Knudten. I'm lucky enough not to have a common name. I'm the only DP DP Knudten in the world as far as I know. And I certainly am on social media. So if you said, hey, how can I follow you on Twitter? At DP Knudten. Hey, how can I find you on Facebook? At DP Knudten. Hey, are you on LinkedIn? Yeah, look up DP Knudten everywhere. So I reconciled those. And initially for a hot second, I thought, oh, I'm going to lose people who were following me by changing my handle. And then I realized no one's following me. So who am I going to lose? What do I have to lose? I have nothing but to gain by being literally true to myself, true to my name, true to the who I am. So that's one of the first things I did. The other thing I did was I looked at the social media landscape because I have natural preferences towards certain channels and I hate certain other channels.
Yeah.
And I realized that for what I do, I needed to be more in the B2B space, the business to business space, because I work with everything from genetic assay testing manufacturers to plywood to everything in between. And where do those people live? They live on one place. It's LinkedIn. So LinkedIn was going to be my number one for sure.
Sure.
Twitter I'm a huge lurker on Twitter because I follow politics like it's a blood sport. It is my sporting event. Twitter is a great place for that. But I don't do much on Twitter. I use it as an amplifier for the stuff I'm doing on LinkedIn and a little bit on Facebook and Instagram. So if I had to put them if I had to stack rank these, I'd say number 1 is LinkedIn, number 2 is Instagram, number 3 is Twitter, and number 4, and I hate to do it, but I have to, is Facebook.
Yeah.
Facebook to me is Marrakesh on market day.
Yeah.
There's so much going on there. You can't get traction.
Nope, unless you're advertising. So, you're right. And LinkedIn, we're in the B2B space as well. So it's, really amazing right now. The organic reach is huge and you're hitting your network for certain industries. So for B2B, like we're in the architecture, engineering, construction, industry and finance, I think those industries, are key on there. And I think even if you start posting even a few times a week, you're going to show up in those, in those feeds because not everyone is posting. There's a lot of lurkers still out there.
Yeah, that's very true. And the other thing is, you don't obviously content marketing is important. You got to create content and market it for yourself, right? I like comment marketing to get started. And what I mean by that is okay. So if you look at your LinkedIn feed and identify a handful to say under 10, maybe 20, less than 20, I'd say if you do 5, focus on 5 people that you want to engage with, or they're birds in a flock that you want to be flying with. You identify those people, and then when they post something, you immediately comment on what they're doing. And it's not, hey, thanks for sharing. That is garbage. That is nutritionless garbage. Instead, you do a comment that uses a technique that I call the like plus. Let's play this out. Carey, you just posted up nice post on LinkedIn about HVAC. I know that one of your big clients is in the HVAC space, the heating, ventilation, air conditioning space.
Yes.
You post something up there about trends in HVAC marketing or sales or whatever it is. Or since we're in COVID, maybe there's a big thing going on about air filtration, getting viruses out of the air, stuff like that. You post on something about that. I see it. I then reply, hey, Carey, I love this share. Thank you so much. So the first thing is appreciation. Thank you. The second part is recognition. Hey, at Carey Balogh. Why? Because you put the at Carey Balogh in because Carey will now be notified that you've commented on her post, and therefore she's going to check it out. And if she's smart, she's going to respond to that comment because she knows that the post will now go wider to more people because the algorithm sees that people are commenting positively on this.
Bingo.
And there's some heat going on in the conversation, all that stuff. The next step is addition. You have to add to it. So if I say, hey, Carey, great post. Thanks for sharing this. My daughter has allergies. You mentioned that this filtration system is great for viruses. Does it work for pollens as well? And then I'm going to add a task or a takeaway at the end, which is, can you point me to an expert or a podcast or another resource that might help me with this? So what have I done? I've just made you look fantastic. I shined the spotlight on you. I have now teed up a golf ball for you to crush, because I know you have a reference that you can point me to, or a podcast or whatever. I have set you up for success.
Absolutely.
So how are you going to think about me for posting like that?
Yeah.
The first time, the first time,
I'm going to want to like go and give back to you. I'm going to want to go onto your page. I want to listen to your podcast, and
exactly. And let's just say
buy your book, which I did.
Well, but let's just say you're practicing good social media for a good-looking woman, which is, I don't comment to every guy who hops in my feed the first time. Okay, so you maybe you say, thanks, I appreciate it, nice talking with you, or watch for more, whatever. If I do that, not 5 times in the first week, but like 2 weeks later, you put up something and I respond to it with a similar technique. Oh, that guy's a pretty decent guy. By the 3rd week, we're practically friends, and you will do things like scratch my back when I post something. You might respond positively to it. You might recommend what I'm doing, et cetera, et cetera. A friendship has developed because of that technique. Yeah. And again, it's appreciation. Thank you. Yeah. Recognition. Carey at Carey, so that Carey will be notified. Addition, I'm adding to the conversation. And then task or takeaway, which is, I'm continuing the conversation by setting up a golf ball for Carey to crush. Now, I'd be a crappy marketer if I didn't have a nice mnemonic device for you to remember this whole technique. And it is this: always make sure there's a rat in your comment. Appreciation, recognition, addition, and task or takeaway.
Brilliant. That's amazing.
But let me tell you, that's how you build followers.
Yes.
At the level you want to fly at.
Absolutely. Definitely. And that's so strategic because, it's all about strategy, because it is so overwhelming, especially to leaders who, aren't marketers, and they're like, how do I approach this? And it's just by taking, those steps that are really going to, move the needle, and having that strategic approach. So that's awesome. Awesome advice. And how many hours a day would you suggest spending on LinkedIn?
15 minutes.
15 minutes. And really
literally
just go after those target.
One, scan your feed for anybody and anything of interest in your sector, in your focused area. Then seek out what those 5 to 10 people that you want to associate with, what they're doing. Yep. If there's nothing on any given day, that's it. 15 minutes, you're done. Yep. If you spot someone who's posted like, oh, Carey's got a new post up, and it's a really nice, thoughtful article about being a woman in marketing in the age of COVID. I'm a man. What can I say about that? Yes. Oh, I've got 3 daughters. Yeah. So I can talk about how I'm going to share this with my daughters. And by the way, my daughter who lives in your neck of the woods is looking for an internship. Do you know of anybody locally who might be interested in having a blah, 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 or whatever it is? Absolutely. All of a sudden, we're creating a relationship. I'm not asking for you about anything hard. I'm not asking for, hey, can I take 20 minutes of your time to tell you about this financial fund or whatever? No, I'm asking you a human thing. Like, can you point me to a resource? Sure. Guess who knows where resources exist? Yeah. Experts. Yes. I have just said, you are an expert. I respect you as an expert. And therefore, I'm asking for your expert advice. Again, I'm not saying, hey, Carey, you're an expert. What do you think about this? Instead, I'm allowing you to demonstrate your expertise.
That is great advice.
Demonstration. It's not about what you say, it's about what you do.
Demonstration.
Yeah.
That is such a great piece of advice. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
That's awesome. So you were an early adapter on all the, the social channels. And then when did it, occur to you, all right, it's time to write my book? And how did you come up with the, the concept?
Okay, well, the book didn't come to me. It came from the mouth of someone I worked with 15 years ago. I was working with a very young person, right out of internship, first job out of college. And she was my daughter's ages. So I kind of acted fatherly to her, just, not just helping her out with how to do marketing, but even life skills, adulting skills, like, just giving hints, like when you're in a meeting as a young woman, your first job, like any young person, is to listen, but find the opportunity to say one thing of value, just one. Because what's going to happen? Heads are going to turn your way and they're going to go, oh, she was listening. She's smart. Maybe we should include her in more important stuff because she's not just sitting there like a fly on a wall.
Sure. Yeah.
Just a little hint like that. And over time, we became friends and all that stuff. And she said, you know what? You should take a lot of what you're telling me and put it in a book. I'm like, I never thought about writing a book. Then a little bit, fast forward a little bit, one of my clients said, you're a really good writer. And I said, well, thank you very much. I write advertising copy every day. Yeah. She said, no. You should write books. I'm like, wow, that's different. All of a sudden, she's forcing me to think differently about myself. And then the big thing was one of my colleagues who I started to get to know after my X Years event, I met a guy named Spencer X. Smith, and he was known in my neck of the woods for being an expert on social media. And he developed an idea called Return on Top of Mind Awareness, ROTOMA. And that became the first book that I wrote with him, which is all about using social media to get a return on, not in terms of ROI, return on investment, but return on top of mind awareness, because people say, what's the ROI of social media? Yeah. And that's a really hard number to come up with, right? But if you say, what is the ROTOMA of social media? And you can see it right away, which is every time I post, I ping on people's radar screens. I'm at the top of their mind, maybe for a millisecond, and then I start dropping down. But every time I ping, boom, it goes back up and drops back down. And Spencer's a sales guy, and he would say, everybody knew who I was after I spent half an hour with him for a good solid week, and then they started to forget about me. As a salesperson, if I'd come back the next quarter, 3 months later, they would go, oh yeah, Spencer, that guy. So that would be like a ping, 3-4 month delay, ping. Sure. Social media allows you to have ping every single day if people are following you. And consequently, well, you've probably had this if you're on Facebook, all of a sudden, a blast from your past, a friend from high school, they start pinging on your Facebook feed, and you go, I haven't thought about that person since the night before graduation. And then you see a week later, they do something else, and you go, oh yeah, we were really close friends. And then you go, I always laughed so hard when we were together. And then by the fifth time you see it, what do? You reach out to him saying, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but we used to have fun in study hall. Remember senior year? And then all of a sudden, that person who was absolutely off your radar screen could now be brought right back into your life. Yeah. Because they pinged. That return on top of mind awareness that, by the way, social media, every single channel, while they may have paid versions, you get 80% of their paid version for free. Yeah. And I'm a cheap ass dad. I spend my money on my family and my kids and all that stuff. I don't spend anything on myself. I am 100% organic. I mean, and never bought a single Facebook ad or, AdWords, Google AdWords or anything for my efforts.
Sure.
Instead, I do what we talk about in the book, Rotoma, the ROI of social media top of mind, which happens to look like this if you're watching on the video feed.
Oh.
It's available on Amazon, and a lot of great ideas in there. The concept is spelled out very cleanly as well. But the whole point is, and by the way, I think if you're watching the video feed, you can see I'm of a certain age, and that certain age is north of 50. I am in the age where people say, oh, I don't do the social media.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? I don't do things that waste my time.
Sure.
But social media doesn't have to be a waste of your time if you use it judiciously. Again, number 1, LinkedIn. Number 2, Instagram. Number 3, Twitter. Number 4, only because I forced myself, Facebook.
Yes. Yeah, totally. No, and you have so much content as far as the book, the podcast, I think some people struggle with, like, what am I going to post? I mean, obviously they can share articles and be thought leaders, and their opportunities to write. But is there anything coming up that is, interesting? Of course, with the events during the shortage of events, of course, during COVID, that was something that was on hold because events was always a great opportunity to talk on panels and stuff like that. But do people need to start a podcast, write a book, write a blog? What's like the entry posting?
Well, again, any of those things you can do is a level up. It's an unlock. You literally start building, but it's very much like going to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
The first day you go to the gym, you don't pick up the 150-pound weight. If you're me, you go over and pick up the 1-pound weight, do 2 reps and go, okay, that's all I can do.
Sure.
But then I come back the next day and I do a few more reps. And then the next day I grab a bigger weight. You start by doing the minimum, getting some response, and then saying, hey, this is actually kind of valuable. And that gets the wheel spinning, the flywheel effect, the idea that you've got this heavy wheel, that the first turn on that wheel is really hard, but then you get some momentum going, and then you add a little bit at a time, and that flywheel gets going faster and faster and faster. And then you can stop and take a week-long vacation, and the flywheel's going because you've got a buffer account that's automatically sending out some stuff while you're on vacation because you've got everything going, and you never stop pinging on people's radars.
Yes.
But if you're asking, if there's a listener right now who's saying, what can I do right now today?
Yeah.
I would say, you could say that I just spent the most riveting half hour, 45 minutes, hour listening to Carey Balogh's podcast, the Brian Groupies Podcast. Do you know about this? Carey Balogh is really smart, and her group of people do this, blah, 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 blah. I heard from this guy from Wisconsin at DP Knudten, and he was really entertaining, and really, I think he's very good looking too. And if you don't, you should subscribe to this podcast. Okay, if someone did that on LinkedIn right now, what do you think Carey's going to do? What do you think I'm going to do?
Well, we're going to love that person and go follow them and comment and, engage and try to support, but not only like a one-off. It would be like let's stay in touch. Let's continue to support each other for the long term.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
Because you're using another one of the techniques I like to call shine the spotlight. Mm-hmm. A lot of people think personal branding is about shining the spotlight on yourself, to which I say, wrong direction, my friend. Mm-hmm. Shine the spotlight on someone else, because guess what happens with the light from that spotlight? It reflects back on you. Maybe not as brightly, but it does reflect back on you. So, for example, I had you on my podcast. We talked only about you. Well, I talk about myself so much that I probably got more than a few words in about that. But we talked about your band, Mama Drama, how you've got a Gibson SG guitar, which obviously I love guitars.
Yes.
All this stuff. I was actively trying to make you look great every step of the way. Every question I asked you was designed to be a golf ball that you could crush. Some of them may not be obvious, and depending on how quick you are on your feet, there might be some thinking involved. Well, that's cool too, because guess what
Sure.
I do? I edit my podcast.
Yeah.
So if it takes you 3 minutes to come up with an answer, all I do is cut out 3 minutes of dead air
Yeah.
and go right from, here's a really tough question, to, that's funny because I've thought about that and here's my answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
You look expert. You didn't look like you had to take 3 minutes to answer the question. I shine the spotlight on you. And so what happens? Some of it's reflected back. Some of it in the form of my podcast. Anytime someone listens to it and they hear how brilliant Carey's being, they think, boy, that DP Knudten hangs around with smart people. That's a reflected light coming back. But it also comes back more directly in the form of Carey Balogh having me on her podcast, where she's asking me questions about myself. Do you think she would have done that before she knew who the heck I was?
Well, maybe. Well, Allison Summers, I have to give her credit, for introducing us.
Yeah, well, but Allison's recommendation is, okay, he gets past the security guard at the front of the club.
Yes.
That doesn't mean I'm going to let him near the safe, with all the money in it. But what happens is, and this is one of the big powerful power unlocks that people who have podcasts know, but people who maybe don't think about. When you have a guest on a podcast, if you get along anything like close to good, you're going to leave that podcast going, that was great. They were smart. That was fun. This is someone who, if I ever run across them in public, I'm not going to say, oh, hi, yeah, I was on your podcast. I'm going to be, Carey, how are you? Oh, my God, I got to have you back on my podcast. Are you available?
Yeah.
And
it's like an instant, friendship.
Right. We have skipped
bonding.
Yeah, we have skipped months of relationship building.
That is so true. Yes.
And that is the power. And again, I don't know how many listeners you have on your podcast, but I don't pull big numbers for my nonfiction brand podcast. Doesn't matter.
No.
Because it allows me to, one, associate with people I want to associate with. I get to choose who comes to my audio pod party. Two, it gives me an excuse to contact people who are flying at a much higher altitude than I am, because they understand the value of being on podcasts, even with small listenerships. An example, when I wrote my first book, the book was about 90% done, and I thought to myself, I need to get some blurbs for the book. I need to have a cover blurb, maybe one for the back of the book, and hopefully a couple I can put on the inside of the book as well, from people who are notable. So I was really kind of iffy about it. So I only sent out requests to 5 different people. One was what I would call a friend who's a C-lister, but I thought I thought they'd do it for sure. Then I sent it out to 2, I would call them B-listers, the people who are striving to become A-listers but weren't there yet. And then 2 people who I considered, oh, there's no way in heck I could get these, but why not? Who do you think responded to that request for blurbs?
The top 2.
The top 2. Why? How do you get to the top? By taking every opportunity you can. And so what does a blurb on some guy's self-published book do for you? It gets your name out there as an expert, because who blurbs books? Experts or authors, or, like the first book. This is from Scott Galloway, the professor of marketing at NYU Stern School of Business, who is also on the Pivot podcast with Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway. If you're a fan of him, you know him as the dog. He writes a book that starches the fluff from social media and helps managers allocate capital and find the unicorn among unicorns, ROI. What is that blurb worth?
Yeah.
What did it cost me? Nothing.
Yeah.
And so the people who are flying at the highest altitude, who are the ones I want to hang with, were the most responsive because I asked.
Yes.
I always love to tell my daughters, if you don't ask, you don't get.
You don't get. You're right.
And they can always say no, to which you say, thank you very much for your time. You've got a fan in me. Good luck with everything you're doing. which, by the way, will make them feel bad for not doing it. So the next time they see your name, they're going to go, yeah, I kind of screwed that guy over. So, hey, by the way, you got a new book coming out or want to be on my podcast?
Yeah.
It's human psychology. I mean,
Yeah, no, it's true. It's so funny because I literally had just bought the book Known by Mark Schaefer. Then I went to you, and then I'm like, oh my God, you had Mark on your podcast several times. So I listened to that, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm such a groupie of these guys and gals, who were on your podcast, and it just was awesome. And then I added him to the book club, and then he commented, and we've been exchanging some messages, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm talking to Mark Schaefer, so that was really cool. And it was all coming back around,
right, because you have something of value for him. And Mark is not unlike a lot of authors, which is when they're in writing mode, they kind of shut down because they got to write the book. They got to put all their energy in writing a book. And more than one person has kind of equated writing a book to giving birth or birthing a child, because it is painful and it's a long period, and you don't think you're going to be a good parent and all this emotional turmoil. Then the book's out. Well, guess what he's going to want to do once that new book comes out? He's going to want to be on every podcast from here to Bangalore.
Yeah.
Because the more people who hear about it and hear from him, the better the book's going to sell, the more people are going to hire him to come speak at an event, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's that flywheel again. If you've got people actively pushing on your flywheel to make it go faster for you, guess what's going to happen? Things are going to happen faster.
Yeah. I love that quote, how to get to the top, take every opportunity you can. That's great.
Yeah. And a lot of people will claim, oh, you're just an opportunist. Like being an opportunist is a bad thing. I was once referred to by someone as a gross opportunist. And I'm like, what does that mean? If there's a $5 bill on the floor, I'm not supposed to pick it up. If there's opportunity sitting on a table, I'm not supposed to grab a slice.
Yeah. And you see the opportunity, you see it more than other people maybe so too. So.
Well, yeah. And also I'm going to turn right around and hand that $5 off to somebody else, and give them opportunity.
Sure.
Because again, it's not about me. It's about us. It's about finding the people that you can honestly say, I recommend this person 100%. I want to be like them. If they said, hey, I'm doing a conference, I would love to have you speak at it, I would drop everything to be there.
Yeah.
If they said, hey, I've got a new book, would you take a look at it? It's still in very early stages, so don't pay any attention to the grammar or the spelling and stuff. I just want someone to give me some thoughts. In a heartbeat, absolutely, because they have earned my attention by giving me attention.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's reciprocal. It's that collaboration thing. You've got a book you need to promote. Come on my podcast. I'm going to make you look good and set you up. I have a book I want to promote. Bring me on your podcast. It doesn't have to be a mercenary back scratch. It can be one of, you're my friend. Why wouldn't I hype you to by the way, I'll never lie.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say your book is 5 stars if I think it's kind of a 4-star.
Sure.
But I'm going to give you a 4-star blurb.
Yeah.
An honest blurb. Like, there were some concepts in this book I had never thought of.
Yep.
But I am now. If you got a blurb like that for your book, now is the copywriter in me says there were some concepts in this book that I've never thought of until now, but I am now, or whatever.
Yeah.
My copywriter says there were some concepts in the book.
Are you back?
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay. Just froze a little.
Yeah, we lost you a little bit.
There you are. Yep. Can you hear me okay now? Is it good?
Yeah. Your picture is a little bit squishy.
Let's see. We are going to work on that.
All right.
But I can hear you. Your audio is good. Yes. So, of course, on the Brand Groupies podcast, we have to ask you about music. So, how on brand is this? So, I don't even know if I got to ask you like your favorite music. Like we usually ask, like, what are you, listening to when you are doing all your personal branding magic?
Oh my gosh. Well, okay. When I'm actually working and I need to focus, I'm a
Yeah.
word guy. So I avoid stuff with words in it because
Mm.
obviously words can take me out of it. I love stories, and good songs are stories, right?
Yes.
So I listened a lot to movie soundtracks.
Okay.
And specifically, if I'm working on something that needs to be exciting, I'm going to listen to movie soundtracks for thrillers or adventure movies and stuff like that. If I'm writing something that needs to be softer and more romantic or more personal, more heartfelt, I'll listen to the soundtracks of romantic comedies, stuff
Mm.
like that, because I just feel like I'm swimming in a swimming pool of the right mood, right?
Mm. Like that.
So that's a huge one. Another one of my favorites is just a minimalist piano player named Ludovico Einaudi, who actually did the soundtrack for, what was the movie that won the Academy Award about the with Frances McDormand in it? It just won
Oh, yeah,
the
just one. What was that?
yeah.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, but anyway, he did a lot of the music on that.
Cool.
Love that. But I will tell you that it's funny. I get so excited when something great comes across my stream, and this actually came from my wife via text message. She said, "Have you ever heard of the band Lawrence?" And I'm like, "Lawrence?" Spelled Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
There is a song there. And if you go on YouTube and look up Lawrence, you're going to see Lawrence, Don't Lose Sight, parentheses, acoustic. It's only got 192,000 views. As of 3 days ago, it was 170,000. So it's starting to get some viewership. It is fan-frickin-tastic. Lawrence, Don't Lose Sight. So I know the question you're going to ask is, what song do I use? Well, ask the question. I forget the formulation.
So we close with the Brand Groupies Challenge. If your brand were a song, what song would it be?
Well, I initially, when you said be prepared to answer this question, I thought, what is it? And I thought, oh, the Who's. Who are you? Literally, who I really want to know. Because, yeah, literally, I really want to know. Before I can write a single piece of copy for you, before I can come up with a single concept or idea, I need to know, who are you? The true deep who are you? So that we can create together a nonfiction brand that is completely true, completely you.
Yes.
But now that I've heard Lawrence's Don't Lose Sight, that is just an affirmational thing, which, the opening lyrics are like, I'm getting sick of this industry. It's taking a piece out of me. But the whole chorus is don't lose sight, baby. Don't lose sight. And it just kicks. Oh, it's so good.
All right. I'm going to put that on my playlist. No, that's so awesome, DP. And I was going to ask you to plug your website and social media handles, which is easy because it's 360-degree branded.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Well, it is easy. And in fact, I would love to offer your listeners the opportunity to get some free PDF downloads from that talk about the Like Plus recipe of a rat in your comment. The key 3, I've got 5 questions that'll get you start thinking about your key 3. And then I've also I'm throwing in a download PDF of a technique called the unselfish selfie. How to take a selfie that can actually enhance your nonfiction brand, personal brand efforts without coming off like a raging narcissist.
Yes.
So you can get those by going to nonfictionbrand.com/gift. Again, that's nonfictionbrand.com/gift. It's absolutely free. You don't even have to sign up for my email list if you don't want to. But if you would like to, sign up on my email list, and I guarantee you I won't send you anything via it because I'm so bad about that kind of funnel marketing stuff.
Yes.
I'm a face-to-face, person-to-person handshake marketer, not a funnel automation marketer.
Oh, well, thank you. That is such a great gift. And it's good because this is the most I've ever scribbled on a podcast, like with a podcast guest. I'm like, oh my God. So now I can go right to your nonfictionbrand.com/gift and get those nicely downloaded.
Well, and the other thing is too, if your listeners are listening, if you post on LinkedIn today or any day, boy, I just listened to the Brand Groupies podcast with at Carey Balogh with the special guest at DP Knudten and really enjoyed it. Do you know this podcast? You should. You should subscribe. Really great stuff. If you do that, I guarantee you that at least I am going to be all over you.
I love it. Well, DP, thank you. I know we could continue to talk. You have so much to offer, and I can't thank you enough for your time and being here. It's always great to see you. So thank you again.
Well, thank you, Carey, and good luck with it, all things Brand Groupies. And by the way, I want to know when the first Mama Drama album comes out because Mom's in Leather Forever.
Yes.
It's already on my playlist.
Is it? Oh, great. Thank you. Awesome. On that note, thank you. We'll keep on rocking.
All right.